What is up, my brothers and sisters, my agents of respect? It's your boy Trey Johnson back with another episode of the No Disrespect But podcast. And if you haven't heard, it's almost playoff time in the National Basketball Association, NBA for short, for those that don't follow sports. But I say it's almost basketball time because we're in play-in tournament season. For those that have been keeping up with the NBA, they introduced the play-in tournament during the pandemic season, the bubble season, because so many games weren't played in that 4 to 5 month stretch that they wanted to give some teams a chance to have a shot at the playoffs that otherwise probably wouldn't have you just started the postseason. Have you started postseason play straight off the break? And so I think before, you had to play to the ninth seed, and then you had a game where the ninth seed played the eighth seed, and if the ninth seed won 2 games, they got the eighth seed, but if the eighth seed won once, they got the seed. I mean, it was a little confusing to say the least, but it did provide something that made sense at the time, just because so many games weren't played in that stretch of time that you wanted to give some teams that may have caught on late in the season, as we've grown accustomed to. We want to give those teams a chance, or the NBA wanted to give those teams a chance to make the postseason and probably make some noise. So, folks, if you remember that run, that was when the Phoenix Suns went undefeated, but it was ultimately Dame Lillard and his Portland Trailblazers that ran the table. Ended up having an 8 seed. I want to say they beat the Memphis Grizzlies in the 8-9 matchup, and they ended up facing the number 1 seed Lakers kind of in that first round of playoffs. And we kind of thought that was just going to be a in case of emergency type of scenario, but the Players Association and the owners, they agreed to make the play-in a full-time thing. So last year was the first time it was in full effect, which also kind of made sense because we had a shortened season, just kind of due to the results of the bubble and the season ending so late. We had a shortened season last year, so again, the bubble kind of made sense, although my personal beliefs about it is you have X amount of games to audition for the postseason, and if you can't do it, so in the regular season, normal regular season is 82 games. I feel that if you can't prove that you're one of the 16 best teams, 8 in each conference, I don't think you deserve a spot in the playoffs, truthfully. But I do have a team that's the 10 seed that's getting an opportunity to play playoff basketball that wouldn't otherwise, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But either way, Players Association and owners decided to do it. So if you remember last year, it was the Golden State Warriors and the Los Angeles Lakers playing in the 7-8 matchup, because the new rules were 7 through 10 seeds are in the play-in. You have a 7-8 game and a 9-10 game, and then the winner of the 9-10 game plays the loser of the 7-8 game for the 8 seed, because that winner of the 7-8 game keeps the 7 seed. So last year, the Lakers got the 7 seed. They beat the Golden State Warriors. And then the Memphis Grizzlies beat my San Antonio Spurs, the 9th and 10th seeds, respectively. And then Memphis went on to beat the Golden State Warriors, earned the 8th seed, ended up playing the Utah Jazz first round. So this year, we have a few new teams. My Spurs are returning as the 10th seed. Then we had the New Orleans Pelicans. Had a rough start to the season, but they came on strong, and with the addition of CJ McCollum, they've been playing 500 basketball. So shout out to them. The Spurs, they've been doing pretty well. I know DeJounte Murray missed a few games, had an illness, non-COVID related, but he missed maybe about 3 or 4 games. But you saw in that stretch, Trey Jones coming into his own. You saw Kelvin Johnson coming into his own. Even Lonnie had some really good moments. The past game he played against Golden State, although we lost the game, he was going for damn near 30, just kind of scoring at will. So that was a pleasure to see. And then you have the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Los Angeles Clippers, the latter of which has been playing most of the season without Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Kawhi has missed the whole season up until this point. and Paul George missed 50 games total. So for them to even be in this position is really good. And so those are the playing teams representing the West. And then on the Eastern side, you have in the 9-10 matchup, you have the Atlanta Hawks. Then you have the Charlotte Hornets. So I'm excited to watch that game. And then you have Brooklyn and the Brooklyn Nets and the Cleveland Cavaliers in that 7-8 matchup. So it's really exciting. I would say that the tournament has, or the playing tournament has brought some buzz to the league. I believe part of this was in part to them wanting to reduce tanking and make it meaningful basketball for teams. So some teams would decide, well, instead of tanking, I'm going to try to get a playoff spot, and that might be good for the development of my players, revenue generation for my stadium and my city where my organization is. And so I understand that, but kind of the more I look at it, I'm just kind of looking at what teams who are in the play-in tournament are giving up. In all honesty, I would argue that it further promotes tanking. This is what I mean. So I'll just use the Pelicans and the Spurs as an example. The Pelicans have a 35% chance to secure a top 4 pick if they should miss the playoffs. Now, if they make it, that percentage goes down significantly. Keep in mind that they have a first round pick, but they also have the Lakers pick. If the Lakers pick is within the top 10, which it looks like it will be, with them finishing 11th in the conference. And then with my Spurs, we currently have a little bit over a 20% chance to secure a top 4 pick, which I think would be beneficial for us. That's a game changer. That's a franchise changer or something. I would argue our next Tim Duncan is in that draft. And so I would love to be able to have some of those players at the top be, in a Spurs uniform and really help us not just be in the play-in, but actually have a playoff spot and be in that, 6 and up range, so where we don't have to worry about the play-in tournament. But, should we make the playoffs, we don't get a top 10 pick. We're set at 15. And, in our personal fan base, there's been some turmoil and some back and forth, a civil war, if you will, on whether we should tank or whether we should fight for a playoff spot. And I mean, I had no idea whether we were tanking or fighting for a playoff spot. I would like to think that we were kind of tanking, but the Lakers suck so bad that we ended up getting this 10 spot. But, we're in this position. You want them to really compete. You want them to win, but also at the same time, it's like, what good does it do to our franchise to have, the 15 pick, and then we got 2 other first round picks? So could we package those picks for a star? Possibly. Could we package those picks to move up in the lottery to get somebody we really like? That's possible, but who knows if teams are going to want to work with the Spurs. I mean, we had a period where we dominated the league, had the best power forward in the game in Tim Duncan, and now that we're down, I think a lot of teams want to kick us. And look, I understand that's the business of it all, but we'll see. But, not here to just talk about Spurs. Max is just here to talk about what I think is going to happen in the play-in tournament, and then have some way too early playoff predictions. I will say I'll finish it all the way through, but I will reserve the right, the way Stephen A says it, I will reserve the right to change once the semifinals get here. But I'm just going to start with some of the playoff games. So I'll start with the East. I'll just start with the Eastern Conference, what I think is going to happen. Honestly, I think the 7-8 matchup, I just can't pick against Brooklyn. KD and Kyrie, they've been on the tear lately. I don't know if Ben Simmons is going to be back for this particular game. I doubt it, but just with the news that he would be back for the first round of the playoffs, I'm a little impartial to, sometimes leagues doing what's best for business. And I think Ben Simmons being in a playoff series, I think Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving being in the playoffs is what's best for business. So not saying there's going to be any conspiracies or any cheating, but I just try to follow what's best for the money. And so, love what Cleveland's been doing this year. It's kind of sad. It's kind of tragic that a team like Cleveland, a team like Minnesota, teams like Clippers, they're in this position where they work their butt off for 82 games, and they could theoretically have winning seasons and lose to teams that have a worse record than them. And on the Western side, losing to teams that are below 500, well below 500. So we'll see. But in that 7-8 matchup, I got Brooklyn over Cleveland. So that will put Brooklyn facing the Boston Celtics in the first round. And then in that 9-10 matchup, I actually have Atlanta beating out Charlotte just because it's a home game for the Hawks. And look, I was a season ticket holder for a couple of years. That's one of the best environments I've been in, especially come playoff time. And I just think with Trae Young having led the league in points and assists, the only player to ever do that in the NBA and in college, I just don't see him allowing his team to lose, and not feel that playoff run they went on last year just provides a level of experience that will give them the edge against a team being led by LaMelo Ball. And they're just really young. So I'm just going to lean on the veteran and like the been there, done that of the Hawks. And so that would result in a Hawks Cleveland Cavaliers matchup. And I just think the Hawks will beat out. I just think the pressure of that game, they've been in game sevens. They've been in big game sixes. I just don't foresee the Hawks losing that game. I could be wrong because Cleveland has had a hell of a year, being led by Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, who's one of my candidates for Rookie of the Year. He's been really big for them. They are without Jared Allen, and I haven't really heard anything that says he'll be back for this play-in. So without him, I just think Clint Capella is going to dominate inside, dominate on the boards. And I just think Trae Young is one of the better players in the league, one of the better guards in the league. And I just think he's going to will his team to a victory. And so they'll have that 8th seed, and they will be facing off against Miami. Now, I'll go with the play-in tournament to the West before we just kind of get to the overall bracket. And I would say, I'll start with the Minnesota Clippers game, 7-8 seed. And normally I would have picked the Timberwolves to win this game. I think they have a really nice squad, just with Karl-Anthony Towns, the best shooting big in the league. Shout out to Cat on that, winner of the 3-point competition during the All-Star break. They got Ant Davis, who's so far removed from a sophomore slump. He has been fantastic. Went for almost 50 on my Spurs the other night. So he's a bona fide star, or he's going to be a bona fide star in this league. He's one of our rising stars. And they got, D'Lo, D'Angelo Russell still, Pat Bev, I think he's changed just the entire organization, just being a scrappy guy, being a tough-nosed guy. I think that bravado he has just resonates in the locker room, and with a team that respects what he's done. I know, a lot of people make jokes about, him not really playing defense or not being that good, but look, you don't play in this league if you don't have what it takes. There's a lot of people that want Pat Bev's spot and haven't been able to take it. And so we have to respect that. And I think he's taken his mentality from when he got into this league, a guy that had to earn everything and is continually earning everything. I think he's brought that to the T-Wolves. But I also want to just shout out the Clippers for the fight. Like I said, Paul George missed 50 games. Kawhi's missed the whole season. And shout out to Ty Lue. I used to, say he was a guy that, anybody can coach when LeBron's on the team. But I think I would say he's made a believer out of me personally. So I gotta, I apologize just for some of the disrespect I've sent his way and on his resume. But at the end of the day, he is a finals winning head coach. He won championships as a player as well. So I just gotta give him his respect. He knows how to win in this league, and he knows what it takes, especially being a role guy in this league. So he knows how to get the best out of those guys. And so with Paul George kind of being back, I think the Clippers sneak out a win. Like, I think it's going to be a really back and forth game. It can go either way. But but I really just have the Clippers kind of sneaking out and taking that 7 seed. So that would actually match them up with the Memphis Grizzlies in the first round. And then the Pels and the Spurs. I'm from New Orleans, so know my people been talking like, oh, the Spurs gonna get it on Wednesday and everything like that. And look, it is what it is. I know we're gonna show up at the Smoothie King Center. I know our guys are gonna be on the court. I don't know how they're gonna play. My guess is that, look, we had a tough year, but this was a year where our guys got to grow. I got to see DeJounte Murray turn into an all-star, literally, being selected to this year's all-star game. I've seen, Keldon Johnson in the past, 10 games really step it up, especially when DeJounte was out for 3 or 4 games. He really stepped up the scoring load, but also made smart plays on his drives. When it was time to score, he scored, but he wasn't, going in there like a bull in the china shop. He made sure to understand and keep himself under control, composed, and find the open man. I think our bench is getting really good, with Lonnie Walker kind of heading that, Trey Jones being that steady point guard for us, even though he's kind of stepped up in that starting lineup for us at times. But he's really been good. I like our big. Zach Collins has been, he's been hurt for the most part, but he's starting to play and starting to gel and get his rhythm going. And you guys know how much I love Jock Landale, Australia's own. So, he's a guy that always brings toughness and grit. He can knock down a shot. I want him to be a little bit more consistent because I think we're going to have some lineups where we need him, especially coming up on Wednesday with JV, Jonas Feliciunas. Like, dude's a stud. So that's where Jakob Poeltl and Zach Collins and Jock Landale, we're going to be throwing bodies at him. And, they're going to stay out of foul trouble and have to rebound, because JV is one of the best offensive rebounders in the league. We're going to have to rebound, finish defensive possessions. And I think we're going to be good. And just shout out to Josh Primo. Last year around this time, when we drafted him, I thought it was a reach. I still think it's a reach. I think we could have gotten later in the draft, but I kind of understand what they were thinking, because, had he stayed in college and come out, he probably would be a lottery pick, a top 10 pick. And so you kind of invest in the future, but you kind of handle that in the present. And, in the second half of the year, he's been actually getting playing time. We've had him with the main roster for a very long time, whereas early in the year, he was kind of in and out of the G League. And so I think having him play with the big guys has created a level of consistency. It hasn't translated to the scoring just yet, but I like the confidence shooting the ball, but also like what he's been able to do on defense. They list him at 6'5". There's no way he's 6'5". He's at least a good 6'6", approaching 6'7", but he's a young guy, still has a ton of room to grow. And so that's why the playing is going to be important for him. And, we got the GOAT Popovich. Like, I'm not about to pick against him in this matchup. Love Willie Green, loves what he's done for the city, what he's done for the Pels organization, and how those guys recovered from a horrible start to the year. But, when it's a big game on the line, I'm just not picking against Pop, especially when I think the rosters are pretty equal. I think we're going to have the edge against them. It's going to be a good game. I know that was one game they blew us out at home, but our last few matchups have actually been pretty close. And so I think this is going to be a game that comes down to the fourth quarter. It's going to come down to free throws, stops, and big shots. And I just trust that the Spurs are going to be able to do most of those things to win that game. And then when we get into the final spot for that eight seed, Minnesota, Spurs, guess what, T-Wolves? We got to pay y'all back for that, for what y'all did to us. And, trying to, run up the score, and the guy trying to get 50. Do we remember those things? I think that's something we put on our bulletin board. I think that's something that DeJounte watched when he wasn't able to play. And I can say with certainty that Ant isn't going off. Like, I can tell you that he's not going off. Like, DeJounte, I'm pretty sure he watched that game, and he said, if we see those guys again, he's done. And much like JV, Cat is a handful. He can score at all 3 levels. So we're going to need our bigs to really buy in on the defensive end and finish drive with rebounds. And so I got the Spurs getting the 8 seed, got the Clippers getting the 7 seed. And so with that 8 seed, that would see my Spurs facing the Phoenix Suns. And so look, I'm about to get a little bit biased to some degree in this. So take what I say with a grain of salt, but I'm gonna go West Conference and then East Conference, and then we're gonna go final. So first round matchups, we got Phoenix Suns 1 seed versus my Spurs. I'm gonna go Spurs in 6. So look, it's just history. Us versus the Phoenix Suns. We have the advantage, 25 wins in the playoffs to their 22 wins. The last time we played them in the playoffs was 2010. They owed us. I still remember that. And you know what? I think we get some revenge. It's a surprise. Nobody's going to expect the Spurs to win this matchup. Obviously, the Suns have Chris Paul. They have an MVP candidate, in my opinion, in Devin Booker. But I got to go with my squad. It is what it is. Shout out to DeAndre Ayton, future Spur. So Spurs in 6 on that one. And then on the 4-5 seed, Dallas and Utah. Now, a lot of this depends on Luka Doncic's health. From what I saw, because I watched the game the other night, it wasn't good. So I'm not sure he'll be ready. If he is playing, I'm pretty confident and pretty sure he won't be near 100%. And just kind of knowing the team camaraderie that Utah has outside of the Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert relationship, I think they have the deeper team. I think they experienced some more highs, so to speak. And like I said, if Luka Doncic, everything runs through him. If he isn't healthy, whether he plays or not, I just don't foresee them getting past Utah. And they're going to have to shoot a lot of threes. With Rudy Gobert occupying the paint, they're going to have to shoot a lot of threes. And I wouldn't say that they're a team that is that reliable from the 3-point range. So I'm gonna go with Utah in 6 on that one. Then we have the 3-6 matchup. We have the Golden State Warriors and we have the Denver Nuggets. Now, I think the Denver Nuggets have at 1-1-8 MVP with Nikola Jokic. He could possibly be another back-to-back MVP. So shout out to the bigs in that regard. Golden State, they're expecting Steph Curry back. So a lot of, he's dealing with that foot sprain. So a lot of my pick depends on if Steph's going to be there, and I'm assuming he will be. I'm assuming he will be ready for the first round of the playoffs. And so with Steph Curry, Denver has nobody that can stop that. And while you might think that, or one might want to say that, the Golden State Warriors don't really have an answer for Nikola Jokic, Draymond Green is a hell of a defender, and he's going to control his ground. And Kevin Looney is going to be there as well. They're going to have the bigs to throw at him. And I just think as far as guard play, which is where a lot of these games are won, what better guard in the playoffs than Steph Curry? So I'm going to go with the Warriors, but I'm going to go with the Warriors in 7. I think it's going to be a really good series. So, I think it's going to be battling from start to finish. And I'm just going to go with the home team and the best players, the best roster, in my opinion. I'm going to go with the Golden State Warriors in 7. And then we have the Memphis Grizzlies and we have the Los Angeles Clippers. Memphis Grizzlies, they've been on the tear. They're great with Ja Morant. They're pretty damn good without him this year. Just a deep team. I think them having played well without Ja has created a lot of experience for some of those guys that probably wouldn't have gotten a whole lot of minutes or wouldn't have been in certain positions. But Coach Jenkins, he's done a hell of a job. Shout out, he came from the Spurs factory, but he's done a hell of a job with this team. And I just can't say that enough. And so when I think of that, I know the Clippers have been doing well. Ty Lue is a fantastic coach. They got Paul George back. I just think the Memphis Grizzlies are just too good of a team. I'll give the Clippers 2 games. So I think Memphis wins that series in 6. And so then when we're talking semifinals, we have the Spurs and we have the Utah Jazz, and then we have the Golden State Warriors and the Memphis Grizzlies. And while I would love to pick my Spurs in this matchup, we just don't match up well with the Utah Jazz. Our three-point shooting isn't the best, and so when you have Jakob in the game, Rudy Gobert can pretty much sit back and just wait to block shots or force us to take three-pointers, which we've been a solid three-point shooting team, but I don't know if we're going to make enough to compete with Utah. And so I'd say, but I do think it would be a good series. I'm going to go and say Utah wins that series in 7. And I think that would be good, even though we don't make it to the conference finals. I think that would be good for the development of my guys. Just kind of going beating number 1 seed, hypothetically, and also going to a 7-game series with a really good, experienced Utah Jazz team. That would be good for them going forward. And I think that would, a guy like Bradley Beal, a guy like Zach LaVine might feel like they're that missing piece. So that helps us in free agency. You know, we can use those first round picks to either do a sign and trade for those guys or try to get ourselves in the lottery, get a top guy like a Paolo Banchero or Chet Holmgren. Who knows what the possibilities are. And so then that the second of the semifinal matchups, the Golden State Warriors and the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm not picking against Golden State. I'm not picking against Steph. I think they feel a little bit upset from last year because it was the Memphis Grizzlies that sent them home when it was pretty much Steph by himself. And I think his running mate, Klay Thompson, is back. I love the Grizzlies and I love what they've been able to accomplish, but I just don't think that they're ready for this moment. And I actually have Golden State winning this in 5. Like, I don't think they're going to hesitate. I think once they win their first round series and they kind of got the swing of it, Klay's being Klay, Steph's being Steph, he's had a series to get acclimated and get healthier. Jordan Poole, all-star Andrew Wiggins, like I said, one of the best defenders, if not the best defender in all the basketball, and Draymond Green. And as he said, this is a time of year where he shoots 40% from 3. So I don't think he's going to be a liability whatsoever. I just think they're going to make quick work of the Memphis Grizzlies in this second round matchup. And so that would set up a conference finals of the Golden State Warriors and the Utah Jazz. And I honestly have the Golden State Warriors winning that series in 5. I'm not even about to give you a breakdown. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a sweep. And it's not that I think the Golden State Warriors are just that much better than the Utah Jazz, but I think in this arena, in this playoff matchup, and with those players, especially the top 3 being championship players and actually having a deep roster, I'm sorry. I think they can neutralize, unlike my Spurs who don't really have the shooting, I think they can neutralize the Utah Jazz. Draymond Green typically plays pretty well against Rudy Gobert. He usually takes that matchup very personally, and he makes it very difficult on both ends with Rudy Gobert. And I just think they're going to make big work of him, and I think that's going to be the end of the Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert era in Utah. So my finals pick from the West, representing the West, is going to be the Golden State Warriors. Now, let's hop over to the East. So my 1-8 matchup being the Atlanta Hawks and the Miami Heat. Miami Heat and Atlanta Hawks. And while I really want to pick with my heart and go with the Hawks, just having been a season ticket holder with them for 2 seasons and watching the growth of Trae Young and John Collins and all those guys, I just can't see it. Maybe if it was a better matchup, maybe if it was Philly or even Boston or Chicago, I would probably pick Atlanta in this matchup. But, this 1-8 matchup, I'm going to go with the 1 seed. I just can't see both 1 seeds being upset in the first round. But I do think it's going to be a competitive series that can go either way. But I'm going to go in and do Miami in 7. I'm going to have Miami winning that series in 7. And then a 4-5 matchup, we got Philly and Toronto. And I know we're trying to monitor Joel Embiid's health because this is usually around the time where he starts to kind of get brittle and break down. Toronto's had a hell of a year. Frank VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, they've been great. But I just think Joel Embiid is on a tear, and you can say what you want about James Harden and his playoff roles. Look, there's a lot of teams that couldn't step to the Golden State Warriors, and he was taking these guys to the distance. And I think he's starting to find his mold of what he wants to do. You've seen the resurgence, or you've seen the improvement and development of Tyrese Maxey now that he knows that he's one of the lead guards on this team and not a placeholder for Ben Simmons. You know, it's his show. So you've seen him do better distributing the ball and scoring the ball. I know Tobias Harris has been a little bit of a question mark because he's hot and cold, but I think that was just him getting used to having a prolific scorer like James Harden and a ball dominant guy like James Harden on the team. And I think James Harden, like I said, started also has been having some slumps, but I can count on him at the very least in the first round. And I think this is going to be a 4-1. I just think so. I know a lot of people thinking this could be a 7-game series or a 6-game series. Some people are favoring the Toronto Raptors, especially because Thibault won't be able to play in the game in Toronto due to Canada's vaccine mandate. But I just don't think Toronto has anybody that can stop Joel Embiid. I just don't. And then when James Harden is on, there's nobody in their roster that can stop him either. Nick Nurse is a hell of a defensive coach, but guess what? Sometimes, but great offense is going to be great defense any day of the week, twice on a Sunday. So I think Philadelphia is going to make quick work, 4-1, off to the second round to face the Miami Heat. Then we have our 2-7 matchup. We're going to have Boston against Brooklyn. I got Brooklyn in 6. Like, I don't need to go through with that. I mean, yeah, I know Tatum's an MVP candidate. Got Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart. They got my boy Derek White. Miss you, Derek, but happy you're thriving there. They got Big Al. You know, he's a big leader in their locker room and is doing great things for them. Still not sure if Robert Williams III is going to be ready. I know he had an injury late in the season. Not sure if he's going to be ready. He's actually, you know, a candidate for all defensive teams, which kind of shows how important he is. And then you have Grant Williams, who's leading the league in three-point shooting or part in the top. But I'm not picking against KD and Kyrie Irving. Not sure if Ben Simmons is going to be back, but if Ben Simmons does return, look, I don't give a damn about his scoring. He doesn't need to score on this team. Like, it's more than just like with Philly, they kind of need him to score because it's just Embiid. So we need another 2 guys. I never knew what you were going to get with Tobias Harris. But on this team, Kyrie Irving and KD can handle the scoring load. And then you got Patty Mills, you got Seth Curry. You have enough guys that can handle the scoring load. Ben Simmons is going to be asked to lock some people down and distribute the ball, get the scorers the ball. And he can do that. And he does that at a high level, especially when it's not the pressure of him actually having to put points on the board, which I think knowing who's on the court with him, that might add to his aggression because there's going to be spacing that didn't even exist in Philly with him and Embiid. Now that you got a KD and a Kyrie on the team, you got a Patty Mills on the outside and a Seth Curry on the outside. It's going to be wonderful. And I think, you know, yeah, it's hard to stop a Jason Tatum, but somebody as lead as Ben Simmons is, somebody that I believe should have won Defensive Player of the Year last year, he's going to make it tough for him. And I think it's going to be enough to win games for him. And so I got, you know, Brooklyn winning that series in 6. And then the Milwaukee-Chicago matchup, look, I love my boy DeMar. He was thriving, was an MVP candidate earlier in the year, but this is a tough draw, man. This is a tough draw. I'll give him a game. I'll give Chicago a game. I got Milwaukee in 5. Giannis is just on a different level. Drew is locked down on the perimeter. You got Chris Middleton. You don't know what he he had a great run last year. You don't know if you're going to get that this year, but I just think Milwaukee's just deep. I just love their roster. I just love the way they've been playing basketball lately. I just can't pick against them. And I love the Bulls. You know, I love DeMar. I love, you know, that he's over there and he's been thriving. But I also need Zach LaVine on my team. And Zach LaVine's not going to be on my Spurs if, you know, y'all make it to the second round. So like, oh, we won a playoff game. We didn't really have all these players. No. I need this to be like a massacre. I need him to believe that there is no way he's going to be competing at a high level in Chicago. That's what I need. But in all honesty, I really just think Milwaukee makes quick work of this one. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a sweep, but out of respect, I'm going to give Chicago a game, 4-1. So then my second round in the East, that's going to give me Miami against Philly, and that's Milwaukee versus versus Brooklyn. I'm gonna go Philly. Philly's my Eastern Conference Finals. I picked them to go to the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm gonna do Philly in 6. I got Philly in 6 on that one. Love Miami, but at the end of the day, closers. You got to have closers to advance in the playoffs. And who's their closer? Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, shooting 13% from 3. Could it be Kyle Lowry? It could be, but Kyle Lowry's, on the other side of 30. Should we have to rely on him? I don't know. And I just think this is going to be, I really think this is going to be a series where you see James Harden take over more so than Joel Embiid. I think Miami is going to make it extremely hard for Joel Embiid, just throwing so many bodies at him. But I think this is where you see James Harden take over, not only scoring the ball, but getting the others, as Shaq likes to say, getting the others involved. And I just think they're going to win that series in 6 and have a trip to the Eastern Conference Finals with a chance at a ring. And then in my Milwaukee-Brooklyn series, I think KD wants his payback, and I think Brooklyn actually wins that series in 6. One would say, well, Milwaukee has the better roster. They pretty much returned everybody from last year's championship team for the most part. Giannis is playing at the MVP level, and I get all that. But at the end of the day, Brooklyn has the 2 best closers in the game. These are going to be games that are down to the wire. I don't think they're going to be too many blowouts. But I do recall the last time I saw these 2 teams playing at full strength in the playoffs, and it was a Kyrie Irving and a Kevin Durant. The Milwaukee Bucks didn't look like they belonged on the same floor as the Brooklyn Nets. And I just think they see the light of the tunnel. I think they have a chip on their shoulder. KD's been hearing the noise about Giannis having his number, and I think he's coming with a bone to pick. And again, a lot of this is assuming Ben Simmons is there, and he does so much for you defensively that you just can't discredit it. So you can put him on Giannis, so KD's not getting in foul trouble. You can put him on Chris Middleton, making it hard for him. You can have him picking up Drew Holiday full court, 6'10" and 6'10". I mean, he can make it tough for a lot of people. And I know I keep saying his name a lot when it comes to defense, but you can also have DeAndre Jordan in the middle taking up space sometimes. LaMarcus Aldridge, he can still be a good defensive force for you. It'll work. It'll work. And so I just think Brooklyn's going to be beating the Philadelphia 76ers in the conference finals. And what a story, right? What a story. I swear to you guys, I'm not wanting this conference matchup for the Ben Simmons storyline. It's just a coincidence based on the bracket. But it's going to be funny as hell when the Brooklyn Nets win Game 7 in Philly. When the Brooklyn Nets win Game 7 in Philly, it is going to be Ben Simmons making free throws to put the game away. You heard it. Brooklyn will beat the Philadelphia 76ers in 7 games. A close game. Ben Simmons will put the game away with free throws and send the Brooklyn Nets to the NBA Finals. And then we have KD and his Nets versus Steph and his Warriors. And I want to pick the Warriors. I really do. But I also don't like the Warriors. I mean, they pretty much ruined my Spurs dynasty, just, with Zaza putting a hit out on Kawhi. But I'm going to go Brooklyn, a 7 seed. Although they have the 3rd highest odds from Vegas to win the title this year, Brooklyn will beat the Golden State Warriors in 6 games. And we're going to have a lot to talk about over the summer. Finals MVP will be Kevin Durant. That will be the Finals MVP. And we'll have some talks. We'll have some talks about legacy, about KD's legacy, Steph's legacy. Like I said, my heart of hearts is telling me that Golden State's going to win in 7. But Brooklyn, I can't bet against KD. And then when Kyrie's healthy and he's on. And on both ends of the floor. People don't realize that. Like, he plays defense too. So that's my finals pick. I got Brooklyn. Brooklyn winning the NBA Finals in 6 games. But like I said, I reserve the right to change once we get to the semis. Once we get to the semis, I have the right to change. And we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But you guys have it here. Golden State repping the West. Brooklyn repping the East. Eastern Conference, back-to-back NBA champions. Also starting another dialogue of who's the dominant conference nowadays. So it's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to the play-in. Like I said, I wish it didn't exist, but it does exist, and my team's in it. And I'm gonna be wearing my Fiesta jersey, my Jakob Poeltl Fiesta jersey too that my baby bought for me. Yeah, I like Jakob. We appreciate defense in this household, and I'm gonna be rooting them on. So I understand that it could theoretically mess up our lottery implications, but you know what? Screw it. We're here now. We just got to make it happen. You came this far. Might as well make it happen. So I'm looking forward to watching them play. I'm also looking forward to watching the Hawks. I kind of was hoping that Charlotte hosted it because I'm a little bit closer to them than I am to Atlanta. So I would have liked to catch that game. But it's going to be an exciting series. A lot of postseason series. My favorite time of the year is nonstop basketball. I'm really excited. And look, and I'm gonna end the next segment really quickly. My picks, so to speak, of who I think the NBA awards should go to this year. I'll just start with Coach of the Year. I'm a big Taylor Jenkins guy. I love what he's done with the Memphis Grizzlies. Both, like I said, they're the second seed in the West. They have the third best record. Well, the second best record. I'm sorry, the second best record in the entire NBA. And some of those games were actually won without their best player being Ja Morant. So for what he did, especially without Ja Morant for long stretches, gotta give him credit for that. I know some honorable mentions, Armani Williams. You can go Eric Spoelstra, you can go Nick Nurse, those types. You can go Ime Udoka. So there's guys. You can go Willie Green with the Pelicans. I mean, yeah, that's just in the play-in tournament, but what he did, start the year to where they are now. I mean, shit, had they had a better record, he could have been winning this award, But I'm just gonna go with Taylor Jenkins, Coach of the Year. Then I'll go Most Improved Player. I'm rocking with my guy DeJounte. Had 15 points per game last year, increased that up to 21 points per game, averaging 8 rebounds, averaging almost 10 assists. Got an all-star nod this year. I know you got some guys like Darius Garland that have been doing some great things in Cleveland, but his point differential didn't go up that much. But the wins are wins. Jordan Poole, if he got it, I would not be mad at all because he exploded this year. I think Klay coming back kind of dampened his campaign because had Klay not been here or had they started Jordan Poole instead of Klay and he was having these monster performances, I could really see him getting this award. Then you got Miles Bridges. I hope I got it right. Miles Bridges over in Charlotte. He's having a good year as well. But like I said, I'm gonna go with my guy DeJounte Murray on Most Improved. Rookie of the Year. For a long time, I had Evan Mobley in there. That was kind of when Cleveland was in that 3 to 4 seed range. But Cade Cunningham has just gone on a tear in the second half of the year. If Cleveland were to make the playoffs, I wouldn't be mad if Evan Mobley got it, but just knowing what I know, this is usually an award reserved for perimeter guys. And Cade Cunningham, like I said, I think he has the most 25-point games in the season. He has more of those than the rookies in his class this year. And I think he's brought some promise and some excitement to Detroit. And so I honestly think they're going to be trying to compete next year. I think they're going to get a good draft pick, probably somewhere in the top 5, top 8. And they're going to be looking to compete next year, try to get some veterans to come play with him. So I'd go with Cade Cunningham, but I wouldn't be shocked if Evan Mobley won that award. Sixth man of the year, that's a little hard for me. I don't know. And what should I do? What should I do? Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero. Yeah, I'll go Tyler Hero on that. I mean, he's on the best team, or third best team record wise in the league. He's been going on a tear, averaging over 20 points a game, almost 21 points a game, 39, almost 40% from three this year. I'm gonna go with Tyler Hero now. I think that he have to have somebody representing in that aspect. And then defensive player of the year, I'm gonna go Jaren Jackson. I know there's a lot of good candidates. You got Mikal Bridges, you have Bam Adebayo, even though he missed some games. You have Marcus Smart, which was a pleasant surprise for me because guards don't get love, and I think they should. But Marcus Smart is in the mix as well. But Jaren Jackson, what he's been able to do, leading the league in blocks and block percentage, and he plays more than he's not just a center. He plays the 4 and the 5, and he still leads in those categories. And he's literally can switch from 1 through 5 on pick and rolls. You're okay with him switching, and he knows how to get back to where your guard isn't getting killed on a mismatch either. So I would go Triple J on that one, Jaren Jackson Jr. And then MVP candidate. For a long time, I was just solely on Joel Embiid. Like I didn't want to hear anything else with that discussion, just because I'm taking into account all of the distractions he kind of had to go through with the whole Ben Simmons saga, and then you bring in a James Harden, you're not sure how that's going to go, and he just goes on a tear, scoring the ball, and James hasn't necessarily lived up yet to that trade. So, I know it's going to be a big guy, and I would really love for it to be Joel Embiid. I just think he's had a great year, not just on one side of the ball. Like he's an all defensive team candidate as well. So I would give Joel Embiid the MVP. I think Devin Booker, the Phoenix Suns having the best record in the league, having a chunk of those games without Chris Paul, who was nursing a hand injury. I think he should get more love than he's getting. Obviously, Nikola doing things that nobody has done at his size and at his position, and pretty much playing with a bunch of guys that would be on the bench if his guys were playing. So Michael Porter Jr. out for the year, Murray out for the year, Jamal Murray out for the year. We thought he might be back for the playoffs. We thought MPJ might be back for the playoffs, but they're not. So Nikola Jokic has had to carry a heavy load because he does more than just score the ball. He's also the assist guy for them as well. But for me, I'm going to lean and go with Joel Embiid on this one. I think he's going to be the most valuable player this season, and I think he's going to finish that up, like I said, in the Eastern Conference Finals. Won't make it to the finals. They could, but I just don't think so. I think Brooklyn makes that, and he also wins the championship this year as a 7th seed, which is going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy, and the NBA is going to love it because it's going to further promote the play-in tournament, because the play-in team ran the table and won. So that's just kind of my story. That's what I'm sticking to. Now, as I always say, if I offended anybody, that's a good thing. It's an opportunity for me to learn, and it's an opportunity for you to educate me. All I ask is that you keep it respectful. Peace.